Hey, this is Bronze and Modern Gods. I am John. That's Richard. Hey.
Hi, John. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. Well, crazy week in comic books. We're going to talk about it. Comic book cards. What? They're back? They're selling for hundreds and thousands of dollars. What? Is this craziness? Does it make sense? We're going to talk about it. We want to hear your thoughts as well. We've also got viewer mail, the 25-year rule, our underrated picks of the week. But let's get going, Richard, with the hot book of the week. Oh my God. I don't even know what to say.
I don't know. You and I talked about this, and it's snowing in hell or something along those lines. When XForce #1 is a hot book of the week.
I mean, there's just one thing driving this book right now, and those are the single issues with the Deadpool card. Now,
Right.
take you back to 1991 when this thing came out. It came polybagged in 5 different versions with one of 5 different cards included in the polybag. The Deadpool card came out between New Mutants 98 and X-Force #2, which is Deadpool's second appearance. The card is not Deadpool's second appearance. Please stop saying that, people. Comic books count. Cards do not count as appearances. Stop it.
I know. It's all this to me is fueled by people just being bored. And they're looking for some way of finding entertainment value. And the whole craze about this card being his second appearance is obviously refuted when you look at, we're talking about comic book appearances. His first appearance was New Mutants 98. His second appearance was X-Force #2. Period. This card does not count as an appearance.
People are referring to it as his rookie card. So, okay, I can buy that. It's the first time Deadpool appeared on a card. Great. The Deadpool card by itself in a PSA graded 10.0 saw a best offer accepted this week from the original asking price of $10,000. I don't know what the best offer was, but what? I mean, okay. 10.0s of this card are apparently very tough because the printing is not centered on the vast majority of these. Oh, forgive me. I'm sorry to be so snarky about this, but if you're spending $8,000 on this card, if you're spending $1,000 on this card, Richard and I reserve the right to openly mock you.
Spending $8,000. If I had $8,000 to spend, I would go out and buy an X-Men #1. I would not be buying one of these cards.
Get a low grade 1.5 FF #1. Get something that you know is a slam dunk. This is GameStop stock, you guys. Stop it. I mean, it's fun. Don't get me wrong. But as someone who managed a shop during this time, I'm here to tell you there are cases and cases and cases of this comic book out there. It had a print run of 5 million copies. The best example I can think of is there was an eBay sale on February 11th of 150 unopened copies of this book with the Deadpool card. That's 150 Deadpool cards included. And it sold for $3,250.
Oh my God. I'm sorry. And divide that by 150. And that's just an insane number. It
Now,
really is.
GPA on the 9.8 is, $76 for the book by itself. The last sale was $69. The second print, which is gold, is actually the scarcer of the two if you're going to, roll some dice on the book itself. But nobody cares about the book, I don't think.
No, it's amazing. It's amazing that there's a second print of this book with a 5 million print run. I find that fascinating.
It was insatiable back then. People wanted this book.
But if you look at it, there's 5 million copies printed and there's 5 different cards. That means there are 1 million of these Deadpool cards floating around out there.
There may be more. The urban myth from the day, I was there, was that the cable card was actually the one that was shorted and there are less cable cards than any other card. Who knows if that's true? I just recall that rumor. But yeah, the rule of math, if there's 5 million, 5 cards, 1 million of these have to be Deadpool cards.
Right.
Now, I think we're going to see a lot of these come to market in the next few weeks, and I think there's going to be a major adjustment. In my opinion, and it's my opinion only, based on 40 years of this, sorry, is if you strike first, you win. If you're that one guy who was smart enough, crazy enough, crafty enough to send that one in and get a 10.0 and put it up there for $10,000, he won. That's it. I don't think you're going to see many more winners at that level.
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely. This is definitely a flipper. So you have to be in early on this. You have to sell early. Do not buy this book. Sell the stock that you have, and count your blessings because you were able to unload an XForce #1.
Now, granted, let's talk about the book. Let's put the card aside for a second, and because we're going to talk about cards much more in depth in a few minutes. Let's talk about the book itself. There are two things to look out for XForce #1 that could kind of justify some spec on it. And number one, a large portion of the print run does suffer from some sort of printing error where there's this long book length vertical line that goes right down the front. It's like a big scratch. You might surprise yourself. Go look at your copies. You may have a couple with this huge scratch down it. That makes getting this book in 9.8 a little tougher. I'm not sure what percentage of the 5 million copies has this scratch, but
the polybag too. It can account for rubs and marks, just like the Miles Morales, the Ultimate Fallout 4, you had to press because the polybag left a nice little crease down the back cover.
Another portion of the print run, this is interesting, was actually printed with a negative UPC. And by that, I mean the UPC for the direct version of this book had a little picture of Captain America celebrating his anniversary. Well, for some reason, the negatives were flipped on a portion of the print run. So Cap's drawing is in black and the background's in white instead of vice versa the way it was supposed to be. Now, those versions used to carry a small premium on the market back in the day. I don't know if anybody remembers that. So again, go through your copies and look to see if you have the negative UPC and throw it up on eBay for $10,000 and see what you get.
Oh God.
Who knows? I don't know. This is crazy. This whole week is about craziness.
It is, and we've entered this realm. When we predict this is what happened. We've got the stimulus money hitting, and we've got the surrounding people being bored, and they're funneling money into the comic book hobby, and kind of indirectly now we've seen money being funneled into the cards hobby, and it's just an insane amount of money.
It's interesting that this week there was an article in Forbes on Forbes.com about the resurgence of collectible cards. And the quotes from collectors that they got were very interesting. It was a lot of the speculators from back in the 90s are back trying to, as we say often on this podcast, repurchase their childhood. Mm-hmm. I had a Jordan rookie card and I sold it and I want it back. Guilty. But guys, we say it every week, be smart. Be smart. I smell it. I smell a big crash coming.
Right. Don't go overboard. Don't go overboard because this whole Deadpool card thing is in its moment. But in 6 months, people won't even remember that this was a moment. We will have moved on from this.
Oh, I'll remember.
This is not, and to me at least, something to spec on. This is something to liquidate your current stock on and just move on. And just be careful with your money is what we're saying.
I get it. A lot of you guys looking at because we do see the demographics of people who listen to the podcast. There are some analytics that we look at. A lot of you are under 30. You were young then. You weren't born then even. You see this and you go, wow, this is cool. I don't have this. And, it's Richard, you've got kids. You can't tell your kids anything. If they're going to do something, they're going to do it, right?
Oh, yeah. That's absolutely right.
Yeah. So we can be dad all day long and try to warn you guys and sit back and let you listen or make your mistakes. But we're here to tell you when this house of cards comes collapsing, we're not gonna gloat, we're not gonna laugh, we're gonna think about it, but we're not gonna do it. I mean, you guys, $10,000 for a Deadpool card.
I know.
$10,000 for a Deadpool card.
It's your hobby. spend your money in a way that you get enjoyment. We are just trying to kind of give you that out of the rose-colored glasses kind of vision of this whole thing, and suggesting there are better ways to spend your money.
I'm laughing because I just caught a glimpse of myself on camera looking really angry, and I'm trying not to be angry.
That's gonna have to be the thumbnail for this video.
I can't, you guys. Yeah, Richard and I were there. We saw what happened. Don't be suckered. Don't be fooled again. Listen to the Who.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, they're gonna know who the Who is.
All right. Well, Google the Who and be fooled again. Do that for me. This is not an investment. Straight up, it's not. This is going to settle down. It's going to drop off the radar, like Richard said. Richard says people will forget about it. I will not forget about it, because this is one of those crazy things that, Superman, Death of Superman. Remember, that was a $200 book, $300 book. What is it now? We see these things. 5 million copies, guys. I think this horse has been beaten to glue.
Yes, I think so.
So let's move on to viewer mail.
You've got mail.
This week, Jason Braunwell, I hope I say that right, Braunell. Jason Braunell writes, what are the largest complete runs you have or you are reaching for? While I'm finishing a Fantastic Four and an Amazing Spider-Man run, I also collect Adventure Comics. Whoa, knowing I will never complete it. Good. I'm glad you realized that. Which long run do you actively aim to collect to completion? Richard, go ahead.
My longest run right now is Uncanny X-Men. My focus is issues 94. I have some issues before that, but that's the first issue with the new team, all the way through 300. So I've got that whole run completed. I actually have duplicates because I'm looking to upgrade books in the run. But that's my longest run right now. I am also working on an Amazing Spider-Man run from 50 through 301. That one is going a lot slower just because the individual books are more expensive in that run. But those are my two longest runs. Maybe I have an Avenger run from 100 to 3 something. I can't remember.
Nice. Those are decent. Not bad. Captain America, to answer the question, what runs do you have? 100 on up. I've got all of them. Now I'm working on Tales of Suspense, 58 up. And, we talk about it the last 3 weeks. I don't think I need to go through it again. But, hey, if you got a 58 and a 59 in high grade, your boy's over here with some Deadpool card cash ready to spend. So.
Yeah, and in terms of runs that I'm doing the Spider-Man run. I am working on a very short run of Fantastic Four 1 through 5. Nice. That's enough. That run alone is enough to equal all the other runs that I have combined. So.
But James, I want to talk about your Adventure Comics run. I'm curious as to what your starting point is. Is it the Legion issue?
Kudos on that run, because this is so much excitement in that run.
I think it's cool. Do you have the digests, when it's switched to digest format? Let us know in the comments. Let us know what runs you're working on too. Let's keep this conversation going. That was a popular episode where we talked about our personal goals. I didn't think it would be. I'm glad I was pleasantly surprised. So thank you guys for all the comments.
Oh, speaking of personal goals, we didn't talk about this earlier.
Yeah, let's see it.
So an auction came up for one of my Ultra Grails. This is a book that I never expected to be able to buy, and the stars all aligned, and I managed to buy a copy of Marvel Family Comics #1. This is the first appearance of Black Adam, not qualified in any way. It's not his first Silver Age or none of that BS. This is his first appearance back in 1945. So just got this book in. I'm giving it a light press, and then it's off to CGC next week so I can get it graded. Not necessarily to sell, just because I want to protect it, because it just terrifies me to have an 80-year-old book just basically in a piece of plastic. But anyway, so this is my Ultra Grail. It wasn't on my list of my Grail books that we talked about previously, because I never thought I'd get it. So, and if they call him Shazadam, as they're talking about,
They walked that back real quick when they saw the response. So I think you
yes.
dodged that bullet. Let's talk a little bit about how you got that book, because you don't have to say what you paid for it, but in my opinion, you got it for a steal.
Yeah, we as collectors frequent the internet looking at different sites, and John had turned me onto this auction site. And the auction site, the way they do these auctions is really, really crazy,
It's stressful.
because, oh, yeah, it is very stressful. So they have a period of time for online bidders, where the online bidders will be able to bid a value. And I'm always nervous about doing that, because you show your hand if you bid too early. And then on Saturday, couple previous Saturdays ago, they opened it up to the internet and phone bidders. This was live bidding at that point. So I had put a cap on the book, which was my ultimate price. And there, at first, it didn't look like there was any interest in the book, and it was floating around, a low number. And then all of a sudden, you saw people doing, the alternate, outbidding each other, and it kind of was biting my nails there. And then at the last minute, the guy, the high bidder, stopped right below my high bid, so my bid was the one that actually won, and that was really exciting. But here's the caveat to this whole online auction thing: be very careful that you understand the fees that are associated with bidding online, because the fees alone totaled almost 20% of the cost of the book.
Tell them how much you got charged for shipping for that one book.
I got charged $75 for shipping for the one book. And that includes, I'm assuming it include insurance in that price, because it came to USPS priority. But yeah, it was expensive shipping. It was expensive fees. It was expensive taxes. So make sure when you look at buying a high dollar book, that you take a look at those external costs, because yeah, it jacked up what I thought. Oh, I'm paying this amount for it. And then I got the bill, and they tacked on several $100s. It was a shock.
We cover a lot of this in our episode, eBay alternatives. Make sure you go through the archive and find that. We tell you some sites to check out. We tell you the dangers, and you might end up with a Marvel Family #1.
Yes. Oh, and this is a Golden Age book, which has a whole different set of rules to it and a different grading scale than even Silver Age books.
Yeah.
So
they claim they don't, but there's a sliding scale at CGC when it comes to Golden Age. They overlook a lot of things that on a modern book, if it had the same thing, it'd be getting a 2.0. So congratulations, Richard. I know that is a big one for you. So that's awesome.
And I have to thank you too, John. You and we have our mutual friend Forrest, who was on. We were IMing each other during the auctions, and you guys were as excited for it as I was. So I appreciate that. That's half the fun of collecting, is getting your friends involved.
I had my devil horns on because it was getting close, and I'm like, do another 500. What's another $500, Richard? You're so close. Do it.
Oh my goodness! Yes.
Don't tell your wife. Don't tell your wife. All right. Speaking of craziness and bidding and things getting out of control, our main topic this week: comic book cards. Crafty or crazy? We see this resurgence of comic book non-sport collectible cards just exploding on the market. Does this make sense to you guys? Is it something you're excited about? Is it something you're sitting back with bemused confusement? Confusement? I just made up a word. That's pretty cool.
Nice word. I'm going to write that down.
Going back from my experience back in the day, non-sport collectible cards were kind of a new thing in 1990, 1989 or so is when they started soliciting these. You had both comic book companies into it. You had even people like Eclipse Comics were doing trading cards about political goings on called they had a political card set, just weird stuff going on. And the baseball card market was booming. The football card market was booming. Upper Deck was the king of those cards. We sold them in our shop. That's the only way I learned about sports ball was
By cards.
by selling cards. I was like, oh yeah, Mark McGuire, his card's worth a lot. There you go. Show you how old I am. Pre-steroids, Mark McGuire.
Ty Cobb, yeah, his cards are really taking off.
So it was interesting when that sports card market got overinflated, it collapsed, and you saw big card shops nationwide closing their doors, and they all kind of migrated over to comic books around 1990. That's when you saw people ordering cases of Youngblood #1, cases of X-Men #1, cases of, yes, X-Force #1 with cards included. So you had this new flood in the market of non-sports collectible cards. And at first they sold really well, to the point where Marvel bought Fleer because they were tired of licensing their IP to a third party and having the third party make the money. So Marvel bought Fleer and started doing their own cards. You had some beautiful sets. The Marvel Masterworks set by Joe Jusko. Mwah! I love that. I came in a tin. I had that. I had a full run of the first Marvel Universe cards with the holograms. Those were cool. My opinion of this is not as harsh as it is towards the Deadpool thing and the X-Force thing. I think there's something here because my personal experience, I had these cards, and then when the market crashed and they weren't worth anything, what did I do? I got rid of them. I threw them away. I donated them to Goodwill. I gave them to my nephew.
How dare you not know what was going to happen 30 years in the future?
Exactly. This market was so dead for so long that I truly do think there is a nostalgia driving this, and there is a scarcity in condition for certain sets driving this. Sealed cases of the 1990 Marvel Universe trading cards were selling for about $3,500 a couple of weeks ago, but they have settled down a bit to around $2,500 because more people are realizing, oh, these are worth something now, and there's more coming to the market. Uh-huh. But Richard, you can see the DC Universe, don't sleep on those, right?
The DC Universe is, first of all, they're selling about $400 a case for the DC units for 1991. So that to me is that's good money if you happen to have them in stock. Yeah, now, like I said,
between the Marvel and DC, but to be expected.
To be expected. And now I come from a world of I was a big Magic the Gathering player back in the OG days, and right after Uncommon came out. So or Unlimited, I'm sorry, Unlimited came out. So I'm familiar with the draw of collectible cards and the rarity of cards and the grading process that goes on. And the value of them has just been constantly going up in general. So it's not surprising to see especially rare sets of Marvel cards and DC cards go for a incredible, an increasing amount of money over time. I think we just hit a perfect storm right now where, again, we've got people who have a lot of time on their hands or have a nostalgia resurgence and have disposable income to spend. It is definitely a fear of missing out situation, and it's something that perpetuates itself. When a card box sells for $3,500, you immediately scramble to find what cards that you have, and now
right out to the garage to my trunk.
Yep. Did you have any?
Nope. I did keep the ones that were important to me. I have a set of the Boris Vallejo cards because I loved his art. They're not the Marvel set. They're just, Boris cards. He did like a Boris collection. I have those. I have my Defiant Warriors of Plasm with the binder. Why did I keep those? I love Jim Shooter. I guess I'm a sucker. Let's go back to the question. Are these truly scarce? Again, people sold these, threw them away. Remember how they were stored back then? You had those white boxes with the dividers, and you just threw the cards in there and closed it. Maybe if you were really into it, you put them in individual sleeves. It goes back to ask ask yourself, if you're really skeptical about this, the way I am about the X-Force Deadpool thing, did you have them back in the day? Why didn't you keep them?
Mhm.
And if you were a dealer and you had the opportunity to go to your back room and pull them out, you wouldn't hesitate, would you?
Oh, right. And if you did keep them, and you open up that box and, that long white box and look at them, are
Yeah.
they pristine? Are they tens? Are they nines? More than likely, you're just, used cards.
The hologram cards are going for a premium for a reason. They're easily scratched. So, people flip through cards. You got the hologram in there. There's scratch. So I get it. Is it a long-term thing? I don't know. Maybe there's a little more heft to this, a little more beef to it.
Mhm.
I will tell you though, the scarcest cards of these superhero cards are absolutely the 1996 Marvel Masterpiece cards by Julie Bell and my boy Boris Viejo. That set was released when the market was at its absolute lowest. Cards were already out by 1996, so the fact that they even did a set in 1996 is weird. I think they had to recoup their Fleer investment in some way, Marvel, when they were getting ready to file for bankruptcy. Just alone, the sealed packs from that 1996 set with 7 cards, a sealed pack alone goes for $200 to $250.
Oh, can you imagine? The thing is, there are magic shops and comic book stores around the country that have these things, in their display case, gathering dust because people just don't keep up with the news and aren't aware of their rising value. So, it's worth a drive down to your local comic book store, or magic store, and just taking a quick look in their glass case, they're at the counter that every one of them has, to see if you see any of these cards poking out, because it's definitely worth an opportunity to pick them up.
I hear you, and I have to wonder how many shops like that are still open that are seeing a sudden influx of customers the last 2 weeks. And I can't help but feel like a little twinge of looking back with a little bit of regret, because I remember in my shop, I had sealed boxes just sitting in the back stock, because I ordered too many. And God, I'd love to have those again. Remember when I carried the first Magic cards?
Yes, you did. And I remember I could picture in my mind being in your shop looking at these these unlimited cards and going, what the hell is this game? And it wasn't until, a couple of months later that I actually started getting into it with our mutual friend, Evan, if you're watching. Yeah, those cards in general from that age, that era, are just what's being driven by nostalgia, their value.
That was around 93. It was 93. And I ordered them and nobody bought them. They sat in my display case forever. Evan finally came in and bought a few, and that's where it started. And then, I sold the shop. So, man.
If only you had put a case of those under the bed.
I know. In the garage. Well, speaking of memories, I think it's time to take a trip back 25 years ago via the 25 year rule. Hey, this is one I bet you don't know about.
Right? No, I saw the title and I have no idea. I'm really interested in hearing about it.
Today, we're focusing on, again, 1996 and a very cool Fleer-related premium, and that is Wolverine Special 102.5. Now, this was a mail-away premium from Fleer trading cards. There was a set of Fleer trading cards, Marvel trading cards at that point, and the backs had a panel of a Wolverine story that you could assemble and you could read, but they also had a mail-away comic book that reprinted these panels in comic book form. And the reason why it's number 102.5, because in continuity, this story counted, it took place between Wolverine 102 and 103. And the cover, to bring everything full circle, is by my man, Boris Viejo. The all Boris edition of the podcast this week. There is also, get this, a Wizard variant of this book with a holographic logo to make it totally 90s,
Wow.
and a certificate of authenticity signed by Boris himself. Now that's what I wanted. This is a tough book. It was a mail away, so you had to collect the wrappers, pay, mail away, wait for it to come in the mail, pray it was packaged okay, that your postal carrier didn't hate you. You didn't tip him at Christmas like we told you to. So as a result, there are only 8 9.8s on the CGC census, and a 9.8 sold last November for $950.
That is amazing. I had no idea about this book. These mail away books are definitely hard to get in high grade just because of the way they arrive and the way they're packaged. And like you said, they typically they would show up and your mail carrier would, bundle them all along with all the other paper that came in the mail, and you get creases and things like that in it. So 9.8s I could definitely see very hard to get.
I mean, I see these Ring doorbell cam videos online of like UPS people like tossing packages and throwing them out the truck. And I think, yeah, those are my comics.
Yeah.
Every time. This is a book. I've never seen it. I've never seen it in the wild. I've never seen it at a show. I've never seen it on the wall. I've never seen it in a box. I've never seen it. It's pretty much a ghost.
Excellent. So if you have a copy of this, please post a comment. We'd love to see it. We'd love to show a picture of it our next show, because we'd love to hear the story about this book in the wild.
I'm laughing because I thought you were going to say, if you have this comic, send it to us.
You got a $20 bill in your mother's purse?
Do that too. Yeah. Come on, kids.
Soupy sales it.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to our underrated books of the week. Richard, you start with another rerun.
Yeah, this is a repeat, and I'm repeating it because I still see this book is at a reasonable price level, and that is Marvel Superheroes number 20 from 1969. This is one of my signature books. This is a Doctor Doom book, his first solo appearance separate from the Fantastic Four. This is also the first appearance of Valeria, his love interest. So this book is, in my opinion, one of the most striking covers from a book from 1969. It is fantastic. It's green and black with Doom standing in this supervillain pose with the words or the letters Doom behind him. It is absolutely gorgeous, and for some strange reason, still affordable. If you look at the other books from 1969 from that period, like Submariner number 1, there's more. There seems to be more value associated with those books. But with this book, for the past 2 years, I've been picking up books, books off eBay for anywhere from $50 to a high of about $200. And it's all dependent upon condition and people's knowledge of what they have. But it's still, to me, at $200, a nice clean copy of this book is still really undervalued, because as soon as Dr. Doom shows up in the MCU, this book is, in my opinion, the number 2 book behind Fantastic Four number 5. And most of the people listening to this are just not going to go out and pick up a copy of Fantastic Four number 5 because it's stupid, crazy expensive. And so this falls back to being, that book that people will start to collect.
Now, I got to give a shout out to the cover artist and the artist inside, Larry Lieber, who happens to be Stan Lee's younger brother.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Larry never got a lot of credit. He used to work a lot on the Western titles like Rawhide Kid. He did a long run on there. He was a really good Kirby imitator, good Kirby clone. And he never really made his own mark except for this cover. This cover is iconic. And when you sit back and you think, wow, Larry Lieber did that, that's really friggin' impressive.
Yeah, it's, to me, and it's just an amazing cover. And to me, this book has value simply because of that cover. Yeah. But when you look at the fact that this is really Dr. Doom's first solo appearance, that really just solidifies it. So, and there's a couple different ways that people are talking about him coming into the MCU. Black Panther 2, there's tons of rumors about an adaptation of Doom War, which has him showing up and fighting with Wakanda. There is the Fantastic Four movie. There's just a number of vectors that could introduce him as potentially the villain for the next phase of the MCU. So the last fate has had Thanos for the big villain across multiple stories. Potentially Doom could be the big villain that starts off in, let's say, Black Panther, and then his arc continues for a number of movies. So we all know that Doom is coming. We all know mutants are coming. There's certain definitive things that are going to happen with the MCU, and those two things are self affirming, in my opinion.
There have been a couple stories already confirming Doom coming to Black Panther 2. I would be very careful taking those as gospel because they're from sites that are notoriously famous for clickbait. So, I think it's going to happen, but I don't think any official announcements happened yet.
No, there isn't. And it won't happen until it comes from Feige's mouth himself, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So this is all speculation. And, the speculation is fine because it helps you prepare for when that speculation becomes something solid. This book is easy to, in my opinion, it's easy to press. It's easy to grade because you can take a look at that cover and be able to get a good estimation of its condition. I would not be afraid of cleaning this book. The Doom letters, they get dirty really easily, but they're very easy to clean with a white eraser. It is a square bound book, so watch for the spine. The spine tends to collapse. And by collapse, I mean it kind of bends to the left or right. So you'll see the white spine when you're looking at the front of the book. The corners are something to be careful of because they will bend and you'll be able to see that crease on the corner. But for the most part, this is a pretty durable book. Oh, one last thing, spine splits. Spine splits are notorious in square bound books. And this one
60 square bounds. And you say it's easy to press. I will say yes, if you know how to do it. If you don't know how to press a square bound book, don't try it. There's a way to do it where you support the spine with some backing boards that we can get into later. But yeah.
Yeah. Good point. You do need to know how to press them, because if you press them wrong, you'll end up just making that worse.
The glue melts and you end up with no square bound at all. And bleh.
But to me, it's a great book. If you pick it up for anywhere from 100, 150, I would probably stop at 200 unless you're buying a graded book. This is one of these books that came out in 1969. CGC's cutoff for modern books is 1975. So you are automatically falling into either the value tier or the standard tier or one of those more expensive tiers that has a longer wait. So this is one of those books that if you really want one, I would probably recommend getting it graded. It's a little bit more expensive, but even the graded books still, I think, are reasonable. It's definitely something that is an up-and-coming book as well. Last year, 2020, the high sale, I'm going to pick an 8.0 because there are only 3 9.8s on the census. So it's a difficult book in the higher grades. So an 8.0, and the high sale in 2020 was $375. 2021, which is only 2 months in, the high sale is already $552. So there's definitely movement upward in this book. I think you still have an opportunity to pick up examples of this book at a reasonable price. I could see there being profit in the future as this book trends upwards, or that there's a Doom appearance in the MCU or an announcement.
I want to see the 9.8s. I'm not buying it. I want to see them. How can this book exist in 9.8?
Yeah.
I gotta see them. And also, I think you're right. If you have a copy and you've cleaned and pressed it, send it to CGC, get it slabbed. By the time the Fantastic Four movie premieres in 3-4 years, you'll get your book back from CGC, hopefully.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's another reason to buy it slabbed. If it's just notoriously long right now for grading. It is ridiculous, especially if you can't do modern fast track, which is the way that we typically try to submit books, because you're doing basically a Silver Age book, so you're stuck there in the value tier, and it could be value tier. I think the last I looked was like 83 days, which is just.
I have magazines that I sent in early November that I still have not gotten scheduled for grading yet. CGC, I love you. I hate you. At the same time, you're hiring people. Have you hired them? Can you get them up to speed? I know Sarasota is not the best place to live. Maybe move the headquarters. I don't know. I have plenty of suggestions for you. Thanks, Richard. All right. My underrated book this week is Kid Colt Outlaw number 107.
All
Yeet.
right.
We haven't talked about a Marvel Western in a while. This one is just not a random Kid Colt pick. No, this has a crazy sci-fi story in cover, The Giant Monster of Midnight Valley. No, it's not a giant Gila monster. It is a giant alien that visits the Old West and runs afoul of Kid Colt and all his six shooters, I suppose. Now, this is not the first time Marvel has tried to combine the sci-fi genre with their Western books. We covered Rawhide Kid, number 23 before, with the terrible totem. But usually when Marvel did this, the alien or the monster always was like a fake, like, oh, that was old man Higgins trying to, like Scooby-Doo. This was an actual alien whose spacecraft crashes in the Old West, and he's being chased by everybody, and Kid Colt actually helps him repair his spacecraft and get back up to the stars where he belongs.
Really?
Not out of character at all for this book, I suppose. What? So the goofiness of this book makes it highly sought after for certain oddball collectors like myself, people that collect Marvel Westerns. This is one of the tougher books to find and grade. It's got a classic Jack Kirby cover. If you're going to have someone draw an alien in a spaceship, why not Jack? He does not draw the inside. Be aware of that. It's Jack Keller that draws the inside. So just some Kirby on the cover. The highest graded copy of this book in existence is only a 9.0. And that sold for $1,200 back in the long gone days of 2013. So who knows what that book would sell for in 2021 with all craziness going on. I had a 7.5 of this book that I sold about 4 years ago for $500. So, and I think I had it listed on eBay for maybe 30 minutes and it was gone. Buy it now. No debate, no offer. It was like somebody thought they hit the jackpot. Great. I don't have one now.
Wow. No?
I know.
Do you have an empty space in your heart right now?
Yeah, I do, because I thought, I'll go and I'll find my copy and I'll show it on the show today and you do a little brag, a little show and tell, and she wasn't there. And of course, my Kid Colt collection goes, 103, 104, 105, 106, 109. 110, 107, or 108. So I got to rebuy this. So forget everything I said. Nobody wants this book. It's not worth anything.
Now, was this a late book in the Kid Colt run?
No, this was 1962.
Oh, wow.
The Marvel Westerns were unusual because they had Kid Colt and Rawhide Kid had both started in the very early 50s. As for Kid Colt actually started in 1949 and ran all the way to 1979. Now, granted, half of that run was reprints, but Marvel had a presence on the newsstand when it came to Westerns. They didn't want to leave any genre uncovered in those days. And Kid Colt was one of the most popular titles in the Marvel stable in the early 60s. It outsold pretty much half the superhero line. So it was monthly. It wasn't a bi-monthly. In that period where DC was actually distributing Marvel books and they limited them to 8 titles a month, Kid Colt was one of those titles. So this was smack dab in that successful period for Kid Colt. So it's kind of funny that they would try to tinker with the formula and introduce this alien sci-fi element to it. It didn't last.
No, but I'd love to know the backstory behind that.
I know. Did Stan one day wake up and say, let's have an alien? What's cool about this run, and you would like this, is I believe issue 110 introduces the Man in the Iron Mask, who was a recurring villain for Kid Colt. Kind of looks like someone else that was in Fantastic Four at that same time.
Interesting.
A little Dr. Doom action. I'll throw a image up here so you can see it. So that's another key that people tend to collect when they collect these Marvel Westerns, is that issue as well. So that's going to do it this week. Let us know what you think. Is the card thing a boom? Is it a bust? Is it still too early to tell? We're really curious as to what you guys think. And you can leave us a comment. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram, Bronze and Modern Gods. You can subscribe and like this video and help us reach more people. Or you can just take. How you're so mean. Why don't you ever give?
Yeah, please let us know, because we're really interested in your opinion, especially about this card situation. I never thought we would have a conversation about cards on this show.
It's interesting. I mean, I'll tell you one thing about this hobby. It's never boring.
That's true. And not inexpensive.
Right. So we're going to find out what happens in the next 7 days. Until then, thanks, everybody. We'll catch you next time.
Everybody stay safe.